Bengal have had an unfortunate history of violence. The state is gearing up for Panchayat polls with a single-phased voting scheduled on the 8th of July. The Gram Panchayats, the Panchayat Samitis and Jilla Parishads will all go to elections that are seen as a curtain raiser ahead of 2024 Lok Sabha elections. But why is it making news is because of the violence we've witnessed in the run-up to the nomination process itself. It was last day of nomination yesterday. Bombs, arson, attacks, clashes among political parties seem to be commonplace in West Bengal in election season. Unfortunately, at least 3 lives have been lost at last count. That prompted the Calcutta High Court to direct the state to deploy central forces across all districts of the state to ensure there is no more bloodshed. We're still days away from the election actually happening. Now, in the 2018 rural polls, TMC won 90% of Panchayat seats in the state, 22 Jilla Parishads, all of which were won by the TMC. Those elections too were marred by widespread violence and alleged malpractices. We'll get into those details in just a bit. But that brings us to the bigger question that I want to ask on the right stand tonight. Is there a pattern that we are seeing when it comes to violent elections and the state of West Bengal? And if yes, who is benefiting from this particular violence? Let me first show you what has transpired within this entire week. June 15th, which was yesterday in Bangar, there were 3 people that were killed. There were several others that were injured during clashes. Those are the scenes that we saw from Bangar even as the governor went there today. Navagram in Murshidabad yesterday again. Trinamool Congress's Mohammad Haq was killed. A probe is now underway of what exactly happened. In the same district of Murshidabad, in Khargram, on the 10th of June, a Congress worker was shot dead. Reports suggested that he was allegedly shot dead by 2 TMC workers who have now been arrested, even though the TMC claims that they have nothing to do with the kind of violence that we are ensuing. Now, these are rural elections. There are conflicts that arise and violence that ensues. It's a pattern that many observers from West Bengal say. Let me show you some of the defining moments of what has transpired so far. Unfortunately, it all ended in violent clashes. Bangar, like I mentioned, today, there were 7 bags of crude bombs that were recovered. They were found just lying around and not very far away from a police station. That's what the most shocking bit is. In Birbhum today, there were 20 bombs that were recovered from a house. Why were they there? Were they belonging to someone? They were recovered by the police. We don't know. All of that is under investigation. Again, in Bangar today, we saw the governor visit violence-hit areas. Remember, those crude bombs were found just few hours before the governor was to visit that area because this was one of the worst hit areas as far as violence was concerned. There were many vehicles that were set ablaze by miscreants. On the 15th of June, which is yesterday, in Birbhum, the TMC backers pelted stones near the BDO office. They're believed to be TMC backers. The TMC, of course, denies those claims. As far as North Dinajpur is concerned, again yesterday, 3 CPIM supporters were injured in clashes. How the clashes started, who provoked whom, all of that is up for discussion. All of that there is no clarity on. Again, on 14, Bangar, we saw 2 groups clash inside the BDO office. There was a nomination process that was underway. Inside the block development officer's office is where we saw these clashes break out. On the 14th, the day before that, in Bankura, there were 2 cars with bags full of bombs that were seized. Where were they being transported? Whose car it was? Who was behind this entire thing? All of that is under investigation and the state will have to look into it. Now, the Calcutta High Court has taken note of all of this violence. They've directed that central forces be deployed in the state across all polling stations. The High Court amended its earlier order of segregating just 7 sensitive districts. They amended that and ordered a pan-state deployment of central forces. Here's what the High Court said in its order yesterday. The Calcutta High Court directed the State Election Commission to send a requisition to the centre for the deployment of forces within 48 hours. 24 hours have already passed by. No appreciable steps have been taken ever since the order was passed in the earlier writ petitions is also what the High Court observed. They also said that no effective steps were taken to identify sensitive areas from a law and order point of view. Waiting any longer will cause more damage to the situation and will not aid in protecting the purity of election process was the clear words in which the High Court sounded an alarm, which is why they said that there should be central forces that are deployed in the state. Now, Bengal is no stranger to political violence. During the leftist regime, the situation was much worse, and that's what the TMC often cites. But what does the TMC's track record look like? Here's what happened in the last Panchayat elections. There were 14 people who lost their lives in poll-related violence in 2018. As per the State Election Commission, 20,076 of the 58,692 seats were uncontested. The TMC won Birbhum and Murshidabad uncontested. Bankura, South 24 Parganas also won uncontested by the TMC. What's interesting is all of these areas had witnessed violence back in 2018 when the elections happened. The TMC had won 34% of seats uncontested in the Gram Panchayat elections last time around. Now, while the Panchayat election in 2003 gained infamy for the death toll, the 2018 polls set a record in the number of seats that were won without a contest. The BJP says all of this happened because their workers were intimidated, were threatened from even filing nominations. That's the allegation they were making this time around as well. The BJP has alleged large-scale rigging and instances of violence that were sponsored by the ruling TMC. That was the allegation the BJP made back in 2018. 5 years later, we're back to that same allegation, back to those same two parties. Now, the violence is not the only point of discord in the state. The deployment of central forces has the TMC irked, even though it's an order of the court. Why is that, you might wonder? Now, the TMC and specifically Mamata Banerjee has on multiple occasions raised doubts on central forces. During Panchayat elections in 2023, Mamata Banerjee said that forces stayed in a 5-star hotel and they instigated riots. They held a meeting with the BJP people and then returned, and they provoked the people to commit violence, is what she said on 3rd of April this year. As far as the row over BSF jurisdiction is concerned, Mamata Banerjee said that we must limit BSF 50 kilometers from the international border. The BSF is killing people, she said, throwing them on the other side. The BSF should take police in confidence during ops is also something that Mamata Banerjee has publicly said. In the 2021 assembly elections in West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee and the TMC alleged that there was a misuse of central forces which remains unabated. The forces were misused to intimidate TMC voters is the allegation that they made. They also claimed that these central forces were trying to influence the vote in favor of one party. They were alluding to the BJP, the ruling party at the center, of course. The same election, Mamata Banerjee came out and said that if CRPF creates disturbance, get out them. Forces will scare you, ask you not to vote was the allegation that Mamata Banerjee had made. She even went on to say that Jawans are creating nuisance, attacking women. That allegation was made in the April of 2021. Many have asked her where is the proof to substantiate these claims. Those questions are being raised even now, which is why even after the court that has come out and said that central forces need to be deployed, security needs to be provided to every single polling officer, to every single candidate, we still have the TMC asking, why is the central force even being allowed?